All right, so I am broadcasting now live, so people will be able to see me, and we'll see what we're able to do here. We've got Jeanne on the phone because we could not get into the Hangout through one of the most stressful 20 minutes I think Jeanne or I have experienced in the last few months. So we'll just make sure that everyone can see us and that this is playing properly before we go. Let me know in the chat when you can see the video. And where we go. Jeanne, you're still with me?
I am.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. This is craziness.
A little bit, but I think we're figuring this out here. So I'm going to just make sure that everyone's seeing the video. Get that going there. Okay. Oh gosh! All right, I'm not seeing the video yet, so we'll see if this what is happening. What a crazy day! Okay.
Because now I'm in the Google Plus and it doesn't say error anymore. So maybe
Seriously?
Well, but I don't know. Are you on a different link now?
I went back to the original link, but that should still work. So let me share that with you in an email. And
oh, no, it didn't work again.
Well, in case this happens to work, I'm sending you the link. I'm titling the email link. So you'll have that through there. And we'll see where this goes. Okay. No one is seeing me anyway, so this is just crazy. All right, Jeanne, let me view the page. Get that going. Yeah, I'm going to stand my messages there too. So let's get this link. Video embeds, get that. Okay, we will get this yet. Get that. I don't think my fingers have moved so fast since trying to get all this typed in here. All right, get rid of that. Update. The internet gods are against us today.
They are. I mean, are people hanging in there? My goodness, it's 9:25.
Yeah, they've been chatting with themselves, so.
This is not working. I don't know what happened in 15 minutes that everything went against us. So.
Yeah, seriously. All right, so I have the video appears to be playing now. Everything is working on that front, so we're good there. And people are joining into the video. I think we're good. All right. Good. So I think some of you are seeing me now. Fabulous. Welcome. Apologies. Craziest 20 minutes we've had. I have Jeanne on my phone because we could not get her into the Hangout, come hell or high water. And she's a tech savvy lady, so it wasn't on her end. So I had all sort of a preamble intro that I'm going to basically skip over. But thank you for your patience. I saw some great conversation taking place. So hope everyone's enjoying themselves, even if Jeanne wasn't here to fill the void. Just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Chris Taylor. I'm the founder of Actionable Books. Actionable Books really exists to inspire better conversation in the workplace through the use of popular business books. And it was through Actionable that I first met Jeanne when her book, I Love You More Than My Dog, was ranked as one of Inc.'s must-read books for entrepreneurs in 2009. I thought the title was cute, but I didn't fully appreciate the experience and data-driven rigor that underlies Jeanne's work until I had a chance to sit down with her in her beautiful home in California to learn more about her background. She really is one of the global experts in customer experience. I think many of you have had a chance to check out her bio. And so I'm actually not going to read it to you right now. But Jeanne, thank you so much for your patience and for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so sorry, and I'm sorry, everybody, that I put on makeup and everything. Wow.
I'm sure you look fabulous. We'll put up a screenshot of you at some point so people can see. I want to make sure that I'm using my phone next to my microphone, so I'm hoping you guys can hear Jeanne okay. Let me know, but this is probably the best we've got for right now. So Jeanne, I had a couple questions for you, and then I know we've got a bunch of questions from the audience. This is, as many of you know, sort of an experiment. I've been doing author interviews for many, many years, but this is one of the first times that we're including the community in the conversation. And I mentioned in my blog post that I was nervous about the fact that I'll talk about Murphy's Law in action. But here we are. So Jeanne, I'm really curious. You wrote Chief Customer Officer, the first book, back in 2006. Here we are 9 years later. What prompted you to update / write a second version of the book?
Well, I have been out coaching chief customer officers and the C-suite together as a unit for the last 12 years. And the approach to how to do the work, how to unite the leadership team, and how to turn the work into competencies that need to be embedded versus responding and reacting to survey results has become so clear as a path that I needed to share that I needed to put another year of my life into writing, and that's why I wrote it. I owed it to everybody.
Well, you've even updated the subtitle. I mean, this is not like a gentle polish update. I mean, would you consider this to be an entirely separate book? Is there some, like, do people read version 1 before they read 2.0, or what's the proper way to go about consuming your insights?
Well, it's I'd say about 98% all new content. I do refer to some items in the original book, such as the Power Core. But I would say if you are new in the role or a leader in the role who wants some, boost to the work, I'd start with 2 and go back to 1 at this point, to be honest with you, because 2's all updated. And I interviewed 40 chief customer officers around the world who are in their roles now in this work. Since 2006, we've gotten a lot more savvy. Customer experience is more deliberate. It's more of a science. So I'd start with the 2 if I were you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, no, I love it. So the actual title itself, Chief Customer Officer, for those not familiar with the title, and I don't want to give you too much credit, but in my mind, you coined the term Chief Customer Officer. Now it's becoming part of the popular business vernacular. Where did that term come from, and what does that mean in a corporate setting?
Sure, great question. I didn't coin the term, I actually lived the term because I reported to the presidents of Lanza and Microsoft, Allstate, Coldwell Banker, and Mazda corporations all doing this work. It became apparent to me when I wrote my first book, Chief Customer Officer, that whether you called yourself that or not, there needed to be someone sitting in the center of the storm, uniting the work from a silo standpoint to a customer experience standpoint. And so I had to kind of arm wrestle my publisher in 2006 to call it that book. But now it's part of our vernacular because people recognize that it's important. So that's really, it came out of my life experience and has now really evolved into a very deliberate role in organizations. And many people are actually moving from that role into higher leadership positions, such as CEOs. So it's a stepping stone inside of organizations now as well.
Now, I work with, as you know, I work with a lot in the HR department, and so when we look at the CHRO, it exists in some organizations. In other places, it's a vice president of HR. There seems to be that sense of there's the core C-suite titles, and then there's sort of the secondary C-suite titles. And I don't mean that to be offensive. I think it's a problem that we need to overcome. Are you seeing what are you seeing in major corporations and smaller corporations? Is that chief customer officer getting their proper seat at the table? Is the rest of the C-suite really appreciating the importance of focusing on customers? What's the general attitude out there?
Well, the idea of the work, and again, there's a couple titles for this: vice president or senior vice president of customer experience, chief customer officer. I'm not as, bent on the exact words, but the role. And in fact, that's why my whole second chapter in the new book is around uniting the C-suite, because this isn't a role where you come in and you're a beggar. Please listen to my results. Please come to my meeting. Please hear the reports. That's the old version of this work. Is we came out with the survey results and we kind of begged people to listen to it. This new work is, and I coached leaders a lot of times on how to bring somebody into the role or accelerate an executive into the role. It must be a peer level role. of the C-suite so that they recognize that as a unit, as a team, they're going to transform the business. The CCO is the person guiding, uniting, and illuminating what the actions are to build that engine. They're not sitting on the sidelines begging people to be committed.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you know, when I think about the fact that you've been doing this for 25 years and really an advocate for the customer seat at the senior leadership table, when I think about customer experience, you know, I think about, from a technology standpoint, the importance and the public sort of scrutiny of importance around, you know, user experience and the whole thing from a digital place. And I know that's not what we're talking about here, but I wonder if the rise of sort of focus on user experience, customer experience in the digital space has influenced the collective or the whole from a business standpoint to say that this is something really important and worth focusing on. Is there any sort of tie there to the tech? Is that's just sort of a coincidence?
No, I mean, they actually are connected in the matter of speaking, because user experience is a disciplined methodology for being really deliberate about what you really will not have the customer online go through. With the real explosion of social media, as well as the downturn in the economy, what we're seeing is that leaders are recognizing that it's more important to keep your current customer base and honor and take care of them and grow that asset than it is to simply, you know, acquire new customers into the door. And so those two things have been a really important forcing function, combined with, as you mentioned, the explosion of the web or the internet channel as part of a way to deliver products, goods, services as a revenue-generating place for the business. So all of those things have converged, right? The web explosion, social media, and the economic downturn, I'd say, converged to really drive this to become something companies need to get good at and leaders care about.
I love it. It's fabulous. Thank you. And thanks for providing some context here. I do want to turn to the audience and see if we have some questions coming in. Now, I actually can't scroll back all the way to your original conversations. I know Aaron Gordon. Hi, Aaron. I know Aaron had a couple great questions in there. Actually, the one I'll paraphrase for in case you want to copy and paste Aaron or retype. But Jeanne, the question that came up was this apparent friction, or potentially what can be seen as friction, between wanting to provide that exceptional customer experience and staying aligned with or true to the corporate objectives in the short term as well as in the long term. And when I think about the examples in there, you know, I think about my friend Chester Elton, whose daughter broke her iPod, took it into the Apple store, and the Apple guy said, "Did you drop this?" And she said, "Yeah." And he dropped it on the floor and said, "No, sorry, I did. I'll go get you a new one and replace it." And I love that story because you're building this great brand, but I'm imagining some of the short-term you know, sort of bean counters saying we can't just, you know, it's that idea of being too nice potentially to the customer and needing to maintain that line. Now, I have my own views on this, but I thought I'll throw you a softball there to get started. What are we looking at when we look at the friction between short-term client satisfaction and long-term business objectives, or vice versa?
Well, first of all, let me clear the air for you that you just talked about what I call a wow moment. What this work initially is not just the wow moments, but more importantly, the reliability moments. Did you get your product in time? Did the product work the way it needed to? Was there a service person who was knowledgeable enough to help you with the product when you called? Those are the things that, in a world of social media where we require customers' recommendations, saying the story on Yelp and Opinions and all those thousands of websites to grow, the lack of reliability in the basic blocking and tackling experiences is having an immediate impact on the bottom line. And that's what customer experience does first. It gets to the reliability moments that say to the customer, if you don't care enough about getting it to me when you said you would, then I'm not going to buy again. I'm certainly not going to reward you for it with an accolade. And I may go online and talk about you negatively, which will impede your sales. So that, yes, connects immediately to dollars in revenue.
Yeah, I love that because I think you're right. I mean, we put so much focus on, particularly the media darlings of the Zappos of the world and otherwise, and Apple and so on, where, you know, there's this such a focus on those wow moments. And what I'm hearing from you is that, yeah, that's great and that's important, but we need to get that baseline of reliability in place first. And so looking at those reliability moments, which to me is, I mean, there's a system piece in place where the organization is ultimately responsible for that as much as the individuals on the front line. Is that fair that we're looking at this as a partnership?
Oh my goodness, the front line is the recipient of all of the shenanigans that happens in all of the back end silos. So yes, that's why I get the leadership team very involved in the beginning, because you know, we force the front line to do heroics when what we should really be doing is enabling heroes. So your experience with the company is it depends experience. If you call an airline and you have a good experience, it's because you happen to get somebody who's been there long enough to navigate all the crazy rules, who can understand what you're going through and get you to an answer. You hang up the phone feeling okay, but it depends on who you got. It depends on how much training they got. It depends on how they navigate it. So the work of the business of customer experience is to by stage of the journey, understand all of the dependencies that are required, not just for the front line, but all of the other pieces that deliver reliability. So, you know, it's the front line, yes, but it's also, you know, the way you product, package, and ship your product. It's the reliability of your experience. And in software as a service, there's the whole notion of also, can you download it? Can you use it? Can you log in? Does it lock you out like the experience
like
we have today, right?
Exactly.
That had nothing to do with the front line and everything to do with some weird technology glitch that we just encountered.
Yeah. This is fascinating. I'm hearing, you know, there's something really interesting in there. And for some reason, the metaphor that came up in my head right away was teaching. And there's an education system, and then there's the teachers that live within that system. And, you know, we can have a whole other conversation, but I think, you know, a fairly public view is that the system is broken and there are teachers that provide an exceptional experience in spite of that, but that the system itself is flawed. There's an interesting balance with that though, where if we made the assumption that the system is actually perfect and a lot of teachers are not leveraging it to its best ability, you get into a really interesting balance between having that proper system and then having the proper people utilizing that system, excuse me, properly. Where does the chief customer officer sit in regards to the actual human component, the employee component of customer service or otherwise, compared to or in addition to the system itself?
Well, customer experience is very much about the employee delivery of the different stages of the journey. And what we actually do is we start with the life of the customer and we organize it by stage of the journey. And if you say, for example, in a software as a service company, if onboarding, which it is a critical determinant of if a customer will get value because they know how to use the product and they'll continue to use it, then how are we hiring the right people to onboard? Are we giving them the tools? If you start asking those questions in that manner, then it immediately gets to the way you develop people, what you give them, how you give it to them. It's not only about the front line, but the front line naturally becomes a component of the solution. Whereas before we'd say, oh, we have to build a customer culture, and it would just be this thing, I call it a helicoptering kind of accolade or something that people say we have to do. But what we do in customer experience is we go by stage of the journey, and we make the stage of the journey and the deliverer of the operational experience be a complete formula. So what's the customer trying to experience? And in their ability or need to experience that, what are all the pieces that must be combined? Community, people, communication, technology, product, they all must be part of that, but they must be built together comprehensively. There's nobody else in the organization knitting all those pieces together or uniting the leadership team to knit them together.
Yeah, well, and that's the really interesting part is that it's, you know, we're showing that this has, not just showing, it's not, as you say, it's not a lip service thing. We're building a dedicated person, and I'm assuming a team around them or with them to really make this a central focal point, just like you wouldn't let the finances take care of themselves on their own, or have a little person, person involved a little bit in each part. That may be true. Everyone's got to submit their budgets and their billing and their invoices, but there's a person that oversees it. And that's what I'm hearing here too, is that everyone plays a role, or many people play a role, but there is someone overseeing this and really making sure it remains a focus.
Well, again, I would not use the word overseeing, because that, and I know you just chose the word. I'm not attacking your choice of word, but rather from a sentimental or understanding idea around this role, it's uniting and engaging and facilitating people to come up with the solution by starting with a different starting point, which is, if you go around a CEO's table and you say operations, marketing, sales, how are you all doing? The answers are going to be great, because they're ticking off KPIs that are specific to their metrics, that are specific to what they need to get done, specific to their, key performance indicators. But they're not started with the point of the customer's life and what the customer is trying to accomplish. Right. So the Chief Customer Officer, VP of Customer Experience, unites the organization, gives them a different perspective of the starting point of the work, and then facilitates them into embedding new competencies. So a lot of people are a little worried that this role is a power grab, and it's really not. When this role is successful, the biggest attribute I say with people is you got to check your ego at the door. It's more about making the operations and the front line more successful, and you receding in the background and letting them take the glory.
So are we assigning hard KPIs to a CCO, or are they coming up with their own, or is that not the world we're playing in this regard?
Well, they're not. So I'm not a fan of, for example, saying as a CCO, you've got to increase the survey score. Well, especially in a role where a CCO is not running the operation, the big changes that we need to assign to a CCO initially is building the engine, creating a repeatable cycle for starting with the customer's lives, and then uniting the leaders. So are you there?
Yep, still here, sorry.
One of the most important metrics is actually competency 1 in my new book, which is managing and honoring customers as assets. So as a leadership team, I'm an advocate of rewarding the leadership team as a whole on the growth or loss of the customer base, the net growth or loss. So did you bring in 100,000 customers, but you lost 80,000 customers? So your net growth is only 20,000. If all you're looking at is new sales, you're giving yourself a false positive. Right. So if we unite the leadership team and say that's why we're here, then it connects immediately to the growth of the business.
That's really interesting. I want to dig in on that a little bit, and then we'll zoom back out. But do you, in that situation, do you weight customers differently? Like, is it net growth of customer, sort of our platinum grade customers, and break it down that way, or is it an overall thing? I'm curious as to how that you've seen that managed in the past.
Absolutely, that's a great question. So it's always incoming customers, volume and value, less lost customers, volume and value, because you're right, one isn't equal to one. And that's actually one of the failures of a lot of organizations is, for example, getting back to the people element, they reward the salespeople for bringing in new clients, but it may not be weighted based on the value, the long-term potential value. So they're just going out grabbing, making acquisition sales. Right. When you shift it and make it about not just who you bring in, but how much they grow and their long-term growth, that also embeds a different kind of sensitivity around how a customer's brought in, how they're educated, who they're selected, and how they're, handed off to the other parts of the organization to be developed and taken care of. So value is very important.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense to me. Thank you. I want to come back to that, but there was a question that Diane Coppola asked in the chat. And it's true. We're sort of split in our audience here between big business and smaller business. What tips can you offer for smaller businesses where there may not even be a C-suite, let alone a CCO? It's a small group, and yet customers are still obviously the lifeblood and important part of our business. What can we focus on as the little guy?
Well, in the actual second book I wrote, the I Love You More Than My Dog book, is a great book for a small business owner, because It really creates a framework for a set of questions to define and determine how you will and will not grow your business. So I'd suggest that, and then I'd also go into the new book, the CCO book, and there are there are immediate tools you can use. So how are you going to build a customer listening system, regardless of how large or small you are? But I'd start with the dog book from a cultural standpoint, especially because you kind of got everybody in your purview, and then use the second book as a toolkit to pick what tools are relevant for you.
Yeah, well, and in my experience too, I mean, there's so much you can take from books written for the executive group of a large organization as the little guy, because you can put it into action tomorrow, and it doesn't have to wait until the next annual planning session or leadership retreat. So I totally agree, and I Love You More Than My Dog is brilliant. I think you really enjoy it, Diane and others. It just tweaked his question for me, which just as quickly left my head. No, it's entirely gone. Oh, no, it's gone. It's gone. That was like flickering. I felt it in the back of my head, and then it disappeared again. Oh, I know what it was. Thank you. Officially or unofficially, Jeanne, you mentioned tools like customer listening posts and things like that. Do you have technology that you're finding either fascinating or things you'd recommend at this point?
Well, there's a lot of companies that are emerging in terms of how they're doing mapping and other things. I don't feel comfortable starting to name individual vendors because everybody's doing a really good job. I mean, some are better than others, but again, I don't necessarily want to do that on this call, but I'd be happy to have a conversation with people if they want some recommendations.
That's very diplomatic of you. Well done. That's good. But it's to your point, there's so many tools evolving around the ability to listen in real time. And the thing that I like, coming back to Diane's point, is that they've built their businesses in a scalable way so that as the little guy, sometimes they're free to actually use them, or certainly very low cost. You don't need to feel like you're in an enterprise grade software competition for a lot of the great tools that are out there. So that's great. And I know in the chat, for those that are not checking out the chat but listening attentively to Jeanne, a couple links in there have been posted to the I Love You More Than My Dog summary on actionable books, as well as a link to purchase. Both the books have been posted in there. And I'm sure at some point our infamous interview from 2010, Jeanne, will surface there, because that was a lot of fun.
I'm actually posting it on my new website that's going to launch in about a week.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's definitely one of my highlights, and I say that with confidence and truth. I just had such a great time, and I think we ended up spending like half a day together too, which was fun. So thank you for being a great host.
Oh, you're welcome, and I wish I could see your face today because it was a blast. But thank you for figuring this out. This is great.
Well, we're making do, and I'm sure the rest of the gang would love to see you as well. But any other questions coming in from the troops there? While we're waiting for questions to come in, Jeanne, and I know it's like trying to choose between your children, but doesn't need to be your favorite, could just be two that are top of mind, case studies, or stories that made their way into the new book that you found particularly interesting?
Well, one of the ones that I thought was really fascinating is, and like you said, I interviewed a lot of people, and they're all great. But one of the one that I thought was fascinating because everybody's been there or knows about it is the Smithsonian Institute for the first time built their first journey map. And they welcome over 30 million visitors a year, and they got government funding to go through the process of building a journey map and being deliberate about what happens as you plan your visit to the Smithsonian, what happens when you appear on site, how they navigate you in a huge rotunda. So for me, it's spectacular, and there's some other government agencies in there that I think are just really interesting. Brenda Wenzel, who is the woman who runs all of student financial aid for the government, is the chief customer officer of that department. So just a shout out to government stepping into the fold of all of us, I think is pretty fantastic.
That's awesome. I love that. Now, you mentioned a journey map in there, and from a layman's perspective, I'm going to guess that that's where you map out each stage of a customer or visitor's experience with your brand. And what I heard you say in there, I think, is that it blurs the line between on-site physical visit and probably the very first Google search they do to find out, sort of more information about you. How is that what we're talking about with the journey map? Is that something that we could all go and build, I guess, right? We're losing Jeanne. Hang on. Hopefully you're back momentarily. Jeanne, you there? Oh, you're a little crackly. Hopefully it'll fade back in. I think I'm testing the bandwidth limits of rural Spain right now. You're kind of crackly, Jeanne. Let's just give it a minute here. I'll try calling you right back. Let me do that. I'll call you right back and see if we can get a better connection. We pause now for a brief commercial break. There's no commercials. We're not selling anything. This is really testing the limits, isn't it, of web technology? If it's the Jeanne Bliss interview you posted, 10. So that's more than a little bit ago. We may have posted it on whatever, Vimeo or on the website, but 2 years ago. But that's like 4 years ago, that one. I saw a great question come in there, Paul. That was from you. As soon as we get Jeanne back, we'll check it out and see if we can get an answer. Hopefully you guys are still able to hear me. Oh, really? Maybe not. All right, well, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I'm going to try rebooting everything.